It was supposed to be a joyful Christmas evening. Lights were glowing, children were laughing, and a small town was preparing to celebrate. No one looked up. No one saw the massive star loosening above the Christmas tree. No one, except a trained canine. When the dog began to bark, a biker standing nearby had only seconds to decide: walk away or run straight into danger. What happened next saved a child's life, left a man fighting for his own, and changed this town forever. This is not just a Christmas story. This is a story about instinct, sacrifice, and a miracle no one expected. Watch closely. Pine Hollow was a small town located far from any big city. In winter, the weather there was harsh and unforgiving. Cold wind blew through the streets almost every day, carrying dry snow that scraped against sidewalks, parked cars, and building walls. The temperature stayed below freezing, and even people who had lived there their whole lives still felt the cold creep through their coats and gloves. The sky was gray and heavy, hanging low over the town, making daylight feel short and weak. Despite the cold, Pine Hollow was alive. Christmas was only a few days away, and the town was busy preparing. Almost every building along Main Street was decorated with lights. Warm yellow bulbs lined windows, doors, and street lamps. Storefronts displayed wreaths, red ribbons, and painted signs advertising holiday sales. People moved quickly along the sidewalks, their breath visible in the air, carrying shopping bags, boxes, and wrapped packages. The sound of footsteps crunching on snow mixed with distant holiday music playing from speakers inside stores. At the center of town was Market Square, an open area used for events throughout the year. In summer, it hosted farmers markets and local festivals. In winter, it became the gathering place for Christmas celebrations. That afternoon, the square was full of people. A temporary ice rink had been set up on one side, and children skated clumsily while parents watched from the edges. A small wooden stand sold hot chocolate and coffee, sending warm steam into the cold air. Nearby, town workers were focused on the largest task of all: setting up the Christmas tree. The tree stood tall in the middle of the square. It was a real evergreen, thick and strong, brought in from outside town. Snow rested lightly on its branches. Around it, metal barriers had been placed to keep people at a safe distance while work continued. Cables, tools, and crates were spread across the ground. Several workers moved back and forth, attaching decorations and checking equipment. High above them, near the top of the tree, hung a large metal star. It was not yet fully secured. Thick cables held it in place, connected to a lift beside the tree. The star was designed to light up during the Christmas ceremony later that week. From the ground, it looked stable enough, and most people paid it little attention. Near the edge of the square stood a woman and her child. The woman's name was Lena Carter. She was 32 years old, with a slim build and a calm presence. Her dark hair was tucked under a thick wool hat, and she wore a long winter coat that reached past her knees. A scarf was wrapped around her neck, and gloves covered her hands. Lena's face showed signs of fatigue, but also focus. She was the kind of person who paid attention to her surroundings without appearing nervous. Life had taught her to be observant. Lena worked at a local bakery and had lived in Pine Hollow her entire life. She was used to the cold winters, the small-town routines, and the slow pace of daily life. Since becoming a mother, she had become more careful, more aware of potential dangers, even in familiar places. Beside her stood her daughter, Mia. Mia was 5 years old and full of energy. She wore a bright red Christmas coat with white trim around the hood. A matching red hat sat on her head, slightly crooked, with a small white pom-pom on top. Her boots were dark and sturdy, and her mittens were thick and oversized. Strands of light brown hair escaped from under her hat, and her cheeks were red from the cold. Mia's eyes were wide with excitement as she looked around the square. Mia held her mother's hand, but she kept shifting her weight, unable to stand still. She was smiling, bouncing slightly in place, taking in every light and sound around her. "Mom," Mia said, tugging on Lena's sleeve, "can we go closer to the tree? It's really big." Lena looked toward the tree and the workers around it. She noticed the equipment on the ground and the lift beside the trunk. "Not too close," Lena replied. Her voice was gentle but firm. "We can stay here and watch. It's safer." Mia thought about this for a moment, then nodded. "Okay." She released Lena's hand and began to spin slowly in a small circle, her boots sliding slightly on the snow. She laughed softly, enjoying herself. Lena watched her, staying close enough to reach out if Mia slipped. Around them, people continued moving through the square. A couple walked past carrying boxes of decorations. An elderly man adjusted lights on a wooden booth. Teenagers laughed near the ice rink. The smell of hot chocolate drifted through the air. Lena glanced back at the tree. The star at the top reflected light even during the day. It looked heavy, but secure enough. She turned her attention back to her daughter. "When will they turn the lights on?" Mia asked. "In a few days," Lena answered. "They do it all at once," and Mia smiled. "I want to see it." "I know," Lena said. "We will." While they talked, a new sound entered the square. A motorcycle engine rumbled as a black Harley-Davidson slowly approached the curb near the square. The sound was low and steady, different from the noise of cars and trucks. Several people turned to look. The motorcycle pulled to a stop, and the engine shut off. The rider stepped off the bike. His name was Jack Mercer. Jack was a large man, well over 6 feet tall, with a solid build. His shoulders were broad, and his movements were controlled. He wore a black leather jacket that showed signs of long use, heavy boots, dark jeans, and gloves. His arms were covered in tattoos, visible where his sleeves ended. His face was rough, marked by years of exposure to weather and hard living. He had a short beard with streaks of gray and sharp, focused eyes. Jack's expression was tense. He scanned the square slowly, his gaze moving from the crowd to the tree, then to the workers, surrounding buildings. He stood upright but stiff, as if he was never fully relaxed. He looked like someone who had learned to stay alert at all times. Beside him stepped down a German shepherd. The dog was named Rex. He was a trained canine, strong and alert, wearing a fitted harness. His coat was clean, and his posture was disciplined. Rex stayed close to Jack's side without being pulled. His eyes moved constantly, watching people, listening to sounds, and taking in the environment. Jack rested a hand briefly on Rex's back. The dog responded by standing calmly, focused on his surroundings. It was clear they were used to working together. Some people in the square noticed them and kept their distance. Others simply watched with curiosity. A few children stared at the dog with interest. Mia noticed Rex immediately. "Mom," she said, pointing, "that dog looks like a police dog." Lena followed her gaze. She took in Jack's appearance and the dog at his side. She felt cautious but not alarmed. The dog's behavior was controlled, not aggressive. "Yes," Lena said quietly, "he's probably trained." Mia raised her hand and waved without hesitation. "Hi, dog." Rex's ears lifted slightly. He turned his head toward Mia. Jack followed Rex's movement and noticed the child in the red coat and the woman beside her. For a brief moment, Jack's expression softened. Then he returned his attention to the square. The wind picked up again, blowing snow across the open area. At the top of the Christmas tree, the large star shifted slightly. It was a small movement, barely noticeable. Rex noticed. His body became rigid. His ears pointed forward. His eyes locked onto the star above. He made a low sound in his throat, not yet a bark. Jack felt the change immediately. He looked down at Rex, then followed his gaze upward. "What is it?" Jack said quietly. Rex continued to stare upward, his focus unbroken. The cables above the tree moved slightly in the wind. Jack narrowed his eyes. His grip on the leash tightened. Mia laughed nearby and turned back to her mother. "Mom, can we get hot chocolate now?" Lena was about to answer. Rex let out the beginning of a warning bark. Jack took a step forward, his eyes fixed on the star at the top of the tree. Something was wrong. Jack did not hesitate. The instant Rex's warning bark broke the background noise of the square, Jack's body reacted before his thoughts fully formed. Years of training and hard experience had taught him one thing very clearly. When a trained dog signals danger, you listen. He tightened his grip on the leash and stepped forward, his eyes locked on the top of the Christmas tree. Above them, the wind blew harder. The cables holding the large metal star shifted again, this time enough to be seen clearly. One of the securing points snapped loose with a sharp metallic sound. It was quick, sudden, and unmistakable. The star tilted forward, no longer balanced. A worker below shouted something, but his voice was swallowed by the wind and the growing noise of the crowd. Jack's gaze dropped immediately, following the invisible path the star would take if it fell. Directly beneath it stood Mia. She was still near her mother, her red coat bright against the snow, small and impossible to miss. "Move!" Jack shouted, his voice loud and urgent. Lena heard the panic in a stranger's voice before she understood why. She turned her head sharply, following Jack's line of sight upward. Her eyes widened as she saw the star tilt further, the cables failing to hold. "Mia!" Lena screamed. Mia froze. She looked up, confused by the sudden shouting and movement. She did not understand what was happening. She only saw adults yelling and felt her mother's grip tighten for a split second before everything became chaos. Jack released Rex's leash. "Stay," he commanded. Rex obeyed instantly, stopping where he was, though his body trembled with tension. Jack ran. His boots slipped slightly on the packed snow, but he did not slow down. He crossed the distance faster than most people thought possible, pushing past startled pedestrians. His eyes never left the child in red. The star broke free completely. It fell. The sound of metal tearing loose echoed across the square, followed by screams. The star dropped at an angle, spinning slightly as gravity pulled it down. It was massive, far heavier than it looked from the ground. Lena lunged for Mia, but her footing failed on the icy ground. Her hand brushed Mia's sleeve but did not catch hold. Jack reached them in the same second. He grabbed Mia around the waist and threw his weight sideways, using his body to shield her as they both hit the ground hard. He twisted instinctively, placing himself between the falling star and the child. The impact came immediately after. The star struck Jack's back and the shoulder with a heavy crushing force before hitting the ground. The sound was dull and violent. Snow and metal scraped across the pavement. Jack cried out once, a short, sharp sound, before going still. Mia rolled free, stunned but unharmed. She landed a few feet away, her hat knocked loose, her eyes wide with shock. Lena screamed again and crawled toward her daughter. "Mia! Mia!" she cried, pulling her close, checking her arms, her legs, her face. "Are you hurt? Are you hurt?" Mia shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "Mom, that man..." Her small hand pointed toward Jack. Jack lay motionless beneath part of the fallen star. Blood stained the back of his jacket, dark against the black leather. His body was twisted at an unnatural angle. Rex broke his stay command and ran to Jack's side, barking loudly, his voice filled with panic. He nudged Jack's arm with his nose, whining, trying to wake him. People rushed forward. Workers shouted for help. Someone called emergency services. The square, moments ago filled with music and laughter, was now frozen in fear and confusion. Lena stood slowly, holding Mia close. Her legs felt weak, but she forced herself forward. "That's the man," she said to no one in particular, her voice shaking. "He saved my daughter." A worker carefully lifted part of the star away while others tried to keep Rex from interfering. The dog resisted at first, then stayed close, refusing to leave Jack's side. Jack did not move. Sirens grew louder in the distance. Paramedics arrived quickly, pushing through the crowd with a stretcher. They assessed the situation fast, speaking in short, direct sentences. One of them checked Jack's pulse. "He's alive," the paramedic said. "Barely." Lena let out a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. Jack was carefully lifted onto the stretcher. His jacket was cut open to check his injuries. Blood was visible, but the full extent of the damage was not yet clear. His breathing was shallow and uneven. Rex paced beside the stretcher, barking anxiously. "He's with me," Lena said suddenly, stepping forward. "The dog, he's with him." One of the paramedics hesitated, then nodded. "Fine, but keep him calm." Lena knelt in front of Rex, her hands shaking. "It's okay," she said softly, even though her own heart was racing. "He's going to be okay. Stay with him." Rex looked at her, then back at Jack, and finally settled beside the stretcher, alert and silent. Mia clung to her mother's coat, her face pale beneath her tears. She stared at Jack's still form, her small mind struggling to understand what had happened. "He saved me," she whispered. "He got hurt because of me." Lena hugged her tightly. "No," she said firmly. "He chose to help. You did nothing wrong." The ambulance doors closed, and the vehicle pulled away, sirens wailing as it disappeared down the street. The Christmas lights continued to glow in the square, unchanged, as if unaware of what had just occurred. Several hours later, the hospital in Pine Hollow was small but efficient. Snow piled up outside its entrance, pushed aside by plows throughout the day. Inside, the air smelled of disinfectant and warm air from heaters. Jack Mercer was in surgery. Doctors worked carefully, addressing multiple injuries. He had suffered broken bones, internal injuries, and severe trauma to his back and shoulder. The damage was serious. When the surgery ended, he was moved to the intensive care unit and placed under close monitoring. He did not wake up. Rex lay on the floor outside the ICU, refusing to move far from the door. A nurse tried to lead him away, but Lena intervened. "He won't cause trouble," she said quietly. "Please." The nurse hesitated, then allowed Rex to remain. Lena and Mia sat together on a bench in the hallway. Mia was wrapped in a hospital blanket, her red coat folded neatly beside her. She had stopped crying, but her eyes were dull with exhaustion and fear. "Is he going to die?" Mia asked softly. Lena swallowed. "I don't know," she answered honestly. "But the doctors are doing everything they can." Mia nodded slowly. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, crumpled paper star she had been given earlier that day. "I was going to put this on the tree," she said. Maybe he can have it." Lena felt tears fill her eyes. "That's a good idea," she said. They sat in silence, waiting. Outside, snow continued to fall. Inside the hospital, machines beeped steadily beside Jack's bed. His chest rose and fell slowly, assisted by medical equipment. His face was pale, his expression empty of tension for the first time that day. The biker who had arrived in town as a stranger now lay unconscious, fighting for his life. And the Christmas season in Pine Hollow had changed forever. The days after the accident passed slowly. Winter tightened its grip on Pine Hollow. Snow fell almost every night, covering the streets and sidewalks in thick white layers. The town continued preparing for Christmas, but the mood had changed. People still hung lights and played music, but voices were quieter, and conversations often returned to the same subject: the biker who saved the little girl. At Pine Hollow General Hospital, Jack Mercer remained unconscious. Machines surrounded his bed, each one producing steady sounds that filled the small room. A heart monitor beeped at regular intervals. Tubes and wires were connected to his arms and chest. His right shoulder was heavily bandaged, and his left arm was secured to prevent movement. His face looked different without tension, pale, still. Doctors came and went, checking charts, adjusting medication, speaking in calm, professional tones. They explained that Jack had suffered serious injuries. His body had taken the full force of the falling star. Surgery had stopped the internal bleeding, but his condition remained critical. "He's stable," one doctor told Lena on the second day, "but he's still in a coma. We don't know when or if he'll wake up." Lena nodded, even though the words hit her hard. She had learned that sometimes there were no better answers. She came to the hospital every day. Lena arranged her bakery shifts so she could visit in the afternoons. She brought Mia with her whenever possible. When Mia was at school or too tired, Lena came alone. Each time she stopped at the nurse's desk, asked politely for updates, and then went to Jack's room. Rex was always there. The German Shepherd lay on the floor beside Jack's bed, his body stretched out but his head always raised. He barely slept. When nurses entered the room, his ears moved and his eyes followed every motion. He allowed them to do their work, but never took his focus off Jack for long. At first, hospital staff were unsure about allowing a dog in the room, but Rex was calm, obedient, and clearly trained. After a short discussion, the staff agreed to let him stay, as long as he did not interfere. Rex did not interfere. Mia was quiet in the hospital, very different from her usual self. She sat on the chair near the bed, her legs swinging slightly, her hands folded in her lap. She stared at Jack's face, studying it carefully, as if trying to memorize every detail. Sometimes she spoke to him in a soft voice. "I'm Mia," she said once. "You already know that, I think. My mom says you're very brave." Jack did not move. Mia reached into her pocket and pulled out the small paper star she had been carrying since the day of the accident. It was folded unevenly, slightly torn at one corner. "This is for you," she said, placing it gently on the bedside table. "It's not heavy, I promise." Lena watched from the doorway, her chest tight. She had thanked Jack many times in her head, but seeing him like this made those thoughts feel useless. Gratitude did not fix broken bones. Words did not wake unconscious men. Still, she spoke to him too. "Jack," she said quietly one afternoon, standing beside his bed, "I don't know if you can hear me, but if you can, you saved my daughter. Because of you, she's alive. I hope you know that." Rex lifted his head at the sound of Jack's name. His tail thumped softly against the floor once, then went still again. Outside the hospital, Pine Hollow moved forward. The fallen star had been removed from the square. The Christmas tree was repaired and secured again, this time with extra supports. Town officials inspected every cable and fixture. The lighting ceremony was postponed by 1 week. People talked about Jack in grocery stores, at the bakery, at the post office. That man didn't even hesitate, someone said. He could have walked away, another replied. But he didn't. At the bakery, customers asked Lena about Mia. She's fine, Lena told them. Shaken but safe. And the man? They asked. Lena always answered the same way. He's still unconscious. We're waiting. At night, Lena sat at her small kitchen table after Mia had gone to bed. She stared at her phone, sometimes opening the hospital contact number without calling. She replayed the moment over and over in her mind. The falling star, Jack's shout, the impact. She knew how close she had come to losing her daughter. That knowledge did not fade with time. Mia had nightmares. She woke up crying twice in the first week, calling out for her mother. Lena held her until she calmed down, whispering reassurances. He's strong, Lena told her. Jack is strong. He's still here. How do you know? Mia asked, her voice small. Lena paused. Then she answered honestly. Because he hasn't given up. At the hospital, one afternoon blended into the next. A week passed, then another. Jack's condition did not worsen, but it did not improve either. The doctors adjusted medications and monitored brain activity. They explained that comas could last days, weeks, or longer. There's no clear timeline, one nurse explained gently. Sometimes the body just needs time. Mia brought drawings with her on each visit, pictures of the Christmas tree, of Rex, of herself holding hands with Jack. She taped them to the wall near his bed, with help from the nurses. Rex watched her work carefully, then lay back down. On the evening of December 23rd, snow fell harder than usual. Pine Hollow looked quiet and still. Christmas Eve was the next day. Lena and Mia sat by Jack's bed, as they had done many times before. The room was dim, lit mostly by the hallway light and the glow of machines. Mia leaned close to her mother. "Mom," she whispered. "Yes? Do you think he knows it's almost Christmas?" Lena looked at Jack's still face. Then she looked at Rex, who had lifted his head again. "I don't know," she said, "but maybe he can feel it." Mia nodded seriously. "I hope he wakes up," she said. "I want to say thank you." Lena squeezed her daughter's hand. Outside, church bells rang in the distance, marking the evening hour. Inside the hospital room, nothing changed, but Rex did not sleep. He sat up slowly, his ears alert, his eyes fixed on Jack's face, as if waiting for something only he could sense. The night before Christmas had begun. Christmas Eve arrived quietly. Snow covered Pine Hollow in a thick, clean layer, softening the edges of buildings and streets. Traffic was light. Most shops closed early, their windows glowing with warm lights. Families stayed indoors, preparing dinner, wrapping last-minute gifts, or gathering around televisions and fireplaces. Church bells rang in the distance, slow and steady, reminding everyone that Christmas night had begun. At Pine Hollow General Hospital, the atmosphere was different, but calm. The hallways were quieter than usual. Some staff wore small red pins or Santa hats clipped to their uniforms. A few paper decorations were taped to doors. Someone had placed a small artificial Christmas tree near the nurse's station, its lights blinking softly. In Jack Mercer's room, the machines continued their steady rhythm. Jack lay unmoving in his hospital bed. His breathing was assisted, but regular. Bandages still covered his shoulder and side. His face showed no sign of pain, no sign of awareness. He had not opened his eyes since the accident. Rex lay beside the bed, as he always did. He had not left Jack's side once since the day of the surgery. Nurses brought him water and allowed him outside briefly, but he always returned to the same spot. Tonight, Rex was not lying down. He was sitting upright, alert, his eyes fixed on Jack's face. Lena and Mia arrived shortly after sunset. Lena wore a simple winter coat, and her hair was pulled back neatly. She looked tired, but determined. Mia wore her red Christmas dress under her coat, the same color as the coat she had worn on the day of the accident. She held a small gift bag in both hands. Inside the bag was a drawing and a paper star. They entered the room quietly. "Merry Christmas," Lena whispered, more out of habit than expectation. Mia walked slowly to the bedside. She stood on her toes to see Jack's face better. "Hi," she said softly. "It's me again." Jack did not respond. Mia opened her gift bag and carefully placed the contents on the table. The drawing showed a Christmas tree, a dog, and 3 people standing together. The paper star was taped next to it. "This one doesn't fall," Mia said seriously. I made it safe. Lena knelt beside her daughter and brushed her hair back gently. You did a good job, she said. They sat together in silence. Outside the window, snow continued to fall. Inside the room, the steady sound of machines filled the space. Minutes passed, then more. A nurse passed by the door, smiled softly, and continued on. Rex shifted. At first, Lena thought he was simply adjusting his position, but then she noticed his ears lifting, his body leaning forward slightly. What is it? Lena asked quietly. Rex did not look at her. His eyes were fixed on Jack. Mia noticed too. Mom, she whispered, the dog is looking at him. Rex stood up slowly. His tail moved once. His attention did not waver. Then Jack's fingers twitched. It was small, barely noticeable, but it happened. Lena froze. Mia held her breath. Rex stepped closer to the bed, his nose inches from Jack's hand. Jack's fingers moved again. This time, there was no doubt. Jack? Lena said, her voice shaking. The heart monitor changed its rhythm slightly. A nurse passing nearby stopped and looked into the room. Jack's eyelids fluttered. Slowly, with effort, his eyes opened just a fraction. They were unfocused at first, cloudy, struggling to adjust to the light. Rex let out a low, excited sound and wagged his tail. Jack's eyes moved. They settled briefly on Rex. His lips parted, but no sound came out. It's okay, Lena said quickly. You're in the hospital. You're safe. The nurse rushed in, followed by another staff member. They checked the monitors, spoke calmly but quickly, and called for a doctor. Mia stood very still. He woke up, she whispered, as if afraid speaking louder might undo it. Jack's eyes closed again, but his breathing remained steady. His hand moved slightly, weak but intentional. The doctor arrived within minutes. He's responding, the doctor said after a brief examination. This is a good sign. Lena felt her knees weaken. She sat down hard in the chair beside the bed. Rex remained standing, alert and calm. Will he be okay? Lena asked. The doctor was careful with his words. This doesn't mean he's out of danger yet, but waking up, even briefly, is very encouraging. Mia stepped closer to the bed. Thank you, she said softly, speaking directly to Jack, for saving me. Jack's brow moved slightly, as if he heard something far away. The nurse gently guided Lena and Mia back a step so the staff could work. They adjusted equipment, checked vitals, and made notes. After a while, the room returned to quiet. Jack was asleep again, but this time it was different. He had woken up. Outside the hospital, snow continued to fall on Pine Hollow. Inside, on Christmas night, something had changed. Hope had entered the room. Jack did not wake up again that night. After the brief moment when he opened his eyes, his body returned to a deep sleep. The doctors explained that this was normal. His brain had taken a serious shock, and waking up even for a few seconds was a positive step, not a guarantee of immediate recovery. Still, everything felt different the next morning. Christmas Day arrived with clear skies and bright winter light. Snow covered Pine Hollow evenly, untouched in many places. The town was quiet. Shops were closed, and streets were nearly empty. Inside the hospital, the staff worked with calm efficiency, moving through their routines with soft voices. Lena arrived early with Mia. Mia carried a small stuffed toy in her arms, holding it tightly. She had barely slept. Every few hours during the night, she had asked if Jack might wake up again. When they entered the room, Rex lifted his head immediately. His tail moved slowly when he saw them. He stood up and stepped aside, making space near the bed. Jack lay still, but his breathing looked more natural now. Some of the machines had been removed. The heart monitor remained, its steady sound filling the room. Lena approached the bed carefully. "Good morning," she said quietly. "It's Christmas." Jack did not respond, but Rex's ears lifted. Mia climbed onto the chair beside the bed and leaned forward. "I brought you something," she said. She placed the stuffed toy gently near Jack's hand. "You can hold it when you wake up." Jack's fingers twitched again. This time, the movement was clearer. Mia gasped. "Mom, he moved." Lena leaned closer. "Jack, can you hear us?" Jack's eyelids moved slowly. His face tightened slightly, as if he was trying to wake up from a deep sleep. After a few seconds, his eyes opened halfway. He blinked. Light hurt. He closed his eyes again, then opened them more carefully. His gaze was unfocused at first, drifting across the ceiling, the machines, the walls. Then he saw Rex. His eyes stopped moving. Rex stepped forward immediately, placing his head near Jack's chest. Jack's lips moved. "Rex," he whispered. The sound was weak but clear. Mia covered her mouth with both hands. Lena felt tears rise in her eyes. "Yes," Lena said softly. "Rex is here. You're safe." Jack swallowed with effort. His throat was dry. "Where?" he asked. "You're in the hospital," Lena replied. "You were hurt, but you're alive." Jack closed his eyes briefly. His breathing became uneven, then slowly steadied again. Rex stayed close, his body pressed against the bed. A nurse entered the room, noticed Jack's open eyes, and immediately called for a doctor. Within minutes, the room filled with quiet activity. The doctor asked simple questions. "Do you know your name?" Jack nodded slightly. "Jack? Do you know where you are?" Jack hesitated, then shook his head once. "That's okay," the doctor said. "You don't need to rush." Lena stood back, holding Mia close. She felt like she was witnessing something fragile, something that could disappear if pushed too hard. After the doctor finished the examination, he smiled. "He's awake," he said, "and aware. That's very good news." Jack was exhausted. His eyes closed again, but this time it was clear he was sleeping, not unconscious. Later that day, Jack woke up several more times. Each time, he stayed awake a little longer. He spoke only a few words at a time. His voice was hoarse. His body ached, and moving caused visible pain, but he was present. He remembered Rex. He remembered the square. He remembered running. "I saw the star," he said quietly during one brief moment. "It was falling." Lena nodded. "You saved my daughter." Jack frowned slightly. "The kid? She's okay?" Mia stepped forward. "I'm okay," she said. "Because of you." Jack looked at her for a long second. His eyes filled with something close to disbelief. "You're really okay?" Mia nodded firmly. Jack closed his eyes again. A single tear slipped from the corner of his eye. Rex rested his head on the bed, calm now, as if his job was finally done. By the evening, the doctors reduced Jack's sedation further. He remained weak but stable. The danger had not fully passed, but the worst seemed to be behind him. Before leaving that night, Lena stood by the bed. "I don't know how to thank you," she said, "but we're here. We're not going anywhere." Jack looked at her, confused but sincere. "You don't owe me," he said slowly. "I just did what I had to." Lena shook her head. "You did more than that." Mia waved before they left. "Rest. We'll come back." Jack watched them go, then looked at Rex. "Guess we're not alone," he murmured. Rex's tail thumped once against the floor. Outside the hospital, Christmas lights still glowed in the cold air. Inside, Jack Mercer was awake, and the long road ahead had finally begun. The days after Christmas followed a new routine. Jack Mercer was awake now, but recovery was slow. His injuries were serious, and his body reminded him of that every time he tried to move. His shoulder was still heavily bandaged. His ribs hurt when he breathed too deeply. His back felt stiff and weak. The doctors were honest with him. "You're lucky to be alive," one of them said, "but you'll need time. Weeks, maybe months." Jack listened without arguing. He had lived long enough to know when fighting was useless. Rex remained by his side. The dog stayed in the room whenever possible and waited outside when hospital rules required it. Jack reached down to touch Rex's head whenever he had the strength. The contact grounded him. It reminded him that he was still here. Physical therapy began 3 days after Christmas. At first, it was simple. A therapist helped Jack sit upright on the edge of the bed. Even that small movement left him sweating and exhausted. His hands shook. His breathing became uneven. "That's enough for today," the therapist said calmly. Jack nodded. He did not complain. Lena and Mia visited every afternoon. Mia was no longer afraid of the hospital. She walked in confidently now, greeting nurses by name. She brought drawings, school stories, and small updates about town life. "They fixed the tree," she said one day. "It's really strong now. Mom says it won't fall again." "That's good," Jack replied quietly. Lena stood nearby, watching carefully. She noticed how Jack never spoke much, how he chose his words slowly. He was polite, grateful, but distant. Not cold, just guarded. She understood that kind of silence. One afternoon, while Mia colored at the small table near the window, Lena spoke more openly. "The town council asked about you," she said. "They want to help. Medical bills, repairs to your bike." Jack shook his head slightly. "Not necessary." Lena frowned. "You nearly died saving a child." Jack looked down at his hands. Still not necessary. Lena did not push further. She sensed that pride and independence were important to him. Instead, she said, "Mia made you something." Mia ran over and held up a folded piece of paper. Inside was a simple drawing. Jack, Rex, and herself standing under a Christmas tree. The star was taped firmly at the top. Jack studied it carefully. "Thank you," he said. "I'll keep it." Mia smiled. The hospital staff noticed the change in Jack when the two of them were there. He spoke more. He stayed awake longer. He tried harder during therapy sessions. "Motivation helps," one nurse said quietly to Lena. By the end of the week, Jack took his first steps. They were short, painful, supported by a walker and two therapists. His legs felt weak, like they didn't fully belong to him anymore. But he stood. Mia clapped him before anyone could stop her. Jack smiled for the first time since the accident. It was small, brief, but real. Rex wagged his tail. After that day, Jack pushed himself a little more each session. He did not rush. He followed instructions carefully. He rested when told. The doctors were pleased. "He's disciplined," one of them said. "That helps." Outside the hospital, Pine Hollow returned to its normal rhythm. Christmas decorations stayed up, but the crowds were gone. Snowplows cleared the streets. Children returned to school. Life continued. People still talked about Jack. Some left cards at the hospital front desk. Others sent food for the staff and for Lena and Mia when they visited. Jack did not ask for attention, but he noticed it. One evening, as Lena prepared to leave with Mia, Jack spoke. "Why do you keep coming?" he asked quietly. Lena stopped. She thought for a moment before answering. "Because you didn't have to run," she said. "But you did." Jack nodded slowly. He did not argue. That night, after they left, Jack lay awake longer than usual. Rex slept on the floor beside the bed, breathing steadily. Jack stared at the ceiling. For the first time since the accident, he allowed himself to think beyond survival. He thought about the square, the falling star, the child in red, and he thought about what would happen next. Jack left the hospital 2 weeks after Christmas. He did not walk out strong or confident. He walked slowly, carefully, leaning on a cane the doctors had given him. His shoulder was still stiff, and pain followed him like a shadow whenever he moved too fast. But he was standing on his own feet. That was enough. Rex walked beside him, steady and focused, as if nothing in the world mattered more than keeping Jack upright. Lena and Mia were there when he was discharged. Lena held a folder of paperwork the nurses had given her to help Jack understand follow-up appointments and therapy schedules. She had insisted on helping, and this time Jack had not refused. Mia stood a few steps away, holding a small paper bag. "You're leaving the hospital," she said seriously. "That means you're better." "Getting better," Jack corrected gently. "That still counts," Mia replied. Outside, the cold air hit Jack's face immediately. He paused, breathing in deeply. It was the first time in weeks he had felt winter air without hospital walls around him. His motorcycle waited in the parking lot. The Harley looked the same as before, black, heavy, solid, but Jack did not approach it. The doctors had been clear. No riding, they told him, not for a long time. Jack accepted that without argument. Lena unlocked her car. "You can stay with us," she said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "At least until you're steady." Jack hesitated. Rex looked up at him. Mia stepped closer. "We have a couch," she added, "and a window you can see the street from." Jack nodded once. "All right, thank you." Lena's house was small but warm. It sat on a quiet street not far from the bakery. Snow covered the yard, and a simple wreath still hung on the front door. Inside, the air smelled faintly of bread and soap. Everything was clean and practical. There was nothing unnecessary. Jack moved slowly through the space, careful not to bump into furniture. Rex followed, checking corners as if this were a new assignment. "This is the couch," Mia announced. "It's yours." Jack lowered himself carefully, wincing slightly. "Comfortable?" Lena asked. "Enough," Jack replied. The first few days were quiet. Jack rested, followed his medication schedule, and practiced simple movements the therapist had shown him. Lena went to work in the mornings. Mia went back to school. Rex stayed with Jack. Sometimes Jack watched the street through the window. Sometimes he slept. Sometimes he thought. On the third day, Lena returned home to find Jack standing in the kitchen, holding a dish towel. "You don't have to do that," she said. "I can dry," Jack replied. "Doctor didn't say I couldn't." She let him. They worked side by side in silence. Later that evening, Mia sat on the floor coloring, while Jack rested on the couch. "Do you live far?" she asked suddenly. "Used to," Jack answered. "Not anymore." "Do you have family?" Mia continued. Jack paused. "Not really." Mia nodded as if that made sense. "We're 3, she said, counting on her fingers. "You can be 4. Rex is 5. Jack did not respond right away, but he did not say no. A week later, Jack walked back to Market Square, not alone. Lena walked beside him, matching his slow pace. Mia ran ahead, stopping every few steps to look back. Rex stayed close. The square looked normal again. The tree still stood tall. The star was firmly secured now, reinforced with extra cables and supports. Jack stopped into where it had happened. He looked up. Lena waited without speaking. "I didn't plan it," Jack said quietly. "I just reacted." "I know," Lena replied. Mia stood between them. "I'm glad you did." Jack nodded once. They stayed there for a while, then turned back toward home. Jack did not look over his shoulder this time. Life in Pine Hollow settled into a steady rhythm. The holidays were over. Christmas lights were taken down one by one. The large tree in Market Square was removed, leaving behind open space and faint marks in the snow. The town returned to its normal winter routine. People went back to work. Children went back to school. Snow still fell, but no one talked about it much anymore. Jack Mercer was still healing. He no longer needed the cane inside the house, but he carried it when walking longer distances. His shoulder remained stiff, and some movements caused sharp pain. Physical therapy continued twice a week. The progress was slow, but clear. Jack followed every instruction carefully. Each morning he woke early, fed Rex, and prepared simple breakfast for himself. At first, Lena insisted on helping, but Jack quietly proved that he could manage the basics. He washed dishes, swept floors, and kept his space clean. He did not sit still for long. "Rest is part of healing," Lena reminded him one evening. "I am resting," Jack replied, "just not lying down." Lena accepted that answer. Jack began helping at the bakery. It started small. Lena mentioned one morning that a delivery had arrived late and needed unloading. Jack offered without thinking. "I can lift," he said, carefully. The work was light. Boxes of flour, trays, empty crates. Jack moved slowly, following his therapist's limits. Customers noticed him immediately. Some recognized him from the accident. Others recognized him as the man with the big dog. No one treated him like a hero. They treated him like someone new in town. Jack preferred it that way. Rex waited outside the bakery, watching through the window, alert but relaxed. After a few days, the owner of a nearby repair shop stopped Jack on the sidewalk. "You're the guy from the square," the man said. "I heard you know engines." Jack hesitated. "I used to." "We could use an extra set of hands," the man said. "Nothing heavy, just help." Jack thought about it that night. He thought about the road he had traveled before Pine Hollow. Towns passed through, jobs taken and left, people avoided. The next morning, he walked into the repair shop. "I can try," he said. The work gave him structure. He cleaned tools, organized shelves, and explained simple repairs to customers. His hands remembered things his body was still relearning. Each day ended with soreness and exhaustion, but also with purpose. Mia noticed the change. "You're busy now," she said one afternoon. Jack nodded. "That's good," she smiled. "You look less tired." One evening, as snow fell lightly outside, Jack sat at the kitchen table while Lena sorted paperwork. "I was going to leave," Jack said suddenly. Lena looked up. "When?" "After the hospital," he replied. "That was the plan." "And now?" she asked. Jack thought for a long moment. "I don't think I will," he said. "Not yet," Lena nodded. "You don't have to decide everything at once." Jack watched Rex sleeping near the heater. He watched Mia doing homework at the table. "I know," he said, "but I know this much." The town began to accept him fully. People greeted him by name. Children waved at Rex. The repair shop owner trusted him with more responsibility. Jack rented a small room above the shop, close enough to walk, far enough to stand on his own. He did not leave Lena's life. He simply changed how he stood in it. One afternoon, Jack walked alone to Market Square. Snow had melted in places, revealing pavement beneath. He stood where the tree once stood and looked around. Nothing dramatic happened. No noise, no memories rushing back, just quiet. Jack exhaled slowly. He turned and walked back toward the street where Lena's house stood. He knew where he was going. Spring came slowly to Pine Hollow. The snow melted in stages, leaving wet streets and patches of grass along sidewalks and yards. Trees began to show small green buds. The air no longer burned the lungs when people breathed. Life felt lighter, simpler. Jack Mercer was stronger now. His shoulder still ached on cold mornings, and some movements reminded him of the accident, but his body worked again. He no longer needed physical therapy. He worked full days at the repair shop, earning steady pay. The owner trusted him completely. Customers asked for him by name. Rex stayed nearby, always calm, always alert, but no longer tense. His job had changed. He was no longer watching for danger. He was just being a dog. Jack lived in the small room above the shop, but most evenings he walked to Lena's house. He never came empty-handed. Sometimes it was bread from the bakery. Sometimes it was tools Mia had asked to see. Sometimes it was nothing at all, just his presence. One afternoon, Lena invited him to stay for dinner. It was simple food, nothing special. Pasta, bread, vegetables. Mia talked the entire time. Jack listened. After dinner, they walked together toward Market Square. The town was preparing for a new event, the Spring Festival. Booths were being built. Lights were being tested. Children ran through the open space where the Christmas tree had once stood. Mia stopped suddenly and pointed upward. "Look," she said. At the center of the square stood a tall pole. At the top was a new star, smaller than the Christmas one, lighter, secure. Jack looked up at it. "It won't fall," Mia said confidently. Jack smiled. "Good." Lena watched him closely. "You saved more than one life that day," she said quietly. Jack shook his head. "I didn't save myself. You did." Lena didn't argue. They stood there for a while, watching the town move around them. Nothing dramatic happened. No loud noises, no fear, just normal life. Later that evening, back at Lena's house, Mia brought out a box of drawings. She spread them on the floor. "This is you," she said, pointing. "And this is Rex. And this is us." Jack knelt beside her. "That's a lot of pictures," he said. "You stayed," Mia replied simply. Jack looked at Lena. "I did," he said. Lena met his gaze. "And you can keep staying." Jack nodded. Outside, the sun went down behind the buildings of Pine Hollow. Lights turned on along the streets. People laughed. Music played softly in the distance. The star in the square stayed where it was. So did Jack. Sometimes miracles don't come from the sky. They come through people who choose kindness at the right moment. Maybe it was instinct, maybe it was courage, or maybe it was God quietly guiding a heart to act. Let this story remind us that even small acts of goodness can become miracles in someone's life. May God bless you, protect you, and guide your path. If this story touched your heart, please share, comment, and subscribe to support more meaningful stories. God bless you, and thank you for watching.